Hi, my name is Zach Oat. You may know me from ToyFare magazine and Diamond Select Toys. And your childhood was trash if you didn't watch Cops and Crooks.
It's crime fighting time.
Cops is near and dear to me. I'm so glad that you picked it. I love that cartoon as a kid, and I love those action figures. But I know why I like all that. What made you pick Cops out of everything you could have chosen?
I don't know. It really is a combination of the cartoon and the visuals and the designs of the vehicles and the characters. I like the everybody has a specialty kind of thing. You get a lot of that in GI Joe, but the futuristic police officer thing combined with a really cool toy line, which I didn't discover until actually much later in life. I mean, I guess I kind of knew there were toys at the time,
Yeah.
but I wasn't really. I don't know. Maybe I was just old enough that I wasn't really into them anymore, into toys anymore. But I was still enjoying the cartoon like crazy. Um, but yeah, it's a lot. It's that futuristic vibe. The designs of some of the vehicles were great. The characters, um, and yeah, it's also not one of those cartoons that everybody likes. I got to admit there's certain feeling of like, oh, I'm one of the insiders of like liking Cops. Yeah, because you mentioned Dinosaurs earlier. It's another one of those cartoons that like not everybody would recognize off the bat.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a fun little nugget of pop culture history.
Yeah, right.
I mean, Cadillac dinosaurs.
Yes. I think it's a 50-50, roll of the dice. If you say, oh, ask someone if they like Cops. They're like, oh, the bad boys. You're like, no. Like, I'm talking about, Big Boss and the real Cops and Crooks.
Yeah, I didn't realize until recently when I was revisiting it that when it came back out in '93, it originally ran in '88. They called it CyberCOPS because I think Cops launched in like '89 or '90, and they wanted to differentiate it, so they were calling it CyberCOPS for a little while, and then they brought it back again in '95. They called it Cops again. But CyberCOPS would have been a much more distinctive and great title if they'd started off with that. But to do it second, it just feels a little pandering,
Yeah. It was. I mean, Cops and Crooks. That's a lot of the branding was Cops and Crooks, but I think it was just officially Cops, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they really used the Crooks on TV. It was primarily for the toy line. I think again because they wanted to sort of, give it, focus equally on the fact that half the toy line was not Cops. So they had to put that on there. Otherwise, they'd wonder why this guy dressed like a plumber was called a cop.
I mean, plumber. There were some wacky designs. I know it's like the future. The tagline, "Fighting crime in a future time," which is brilliant. But like even the Cops, it's up there. The Cops, have some futuristic designs. The bad guys really do. And what was it? Bulletproof is like half like robot.
Yes. Depending on whether you watched the cartoon or read the comic, he underwent some very serious injuries that required him to become a cyborg, which was why they called him Bulletproof. They didn't call him Bulletproof before then. He was Baldwin P. Vess with two S's. And they're like, oh, the names were all great puns like that. One of my favorite characters was Barricade, who was the SWAT, not SWAT. He was like crowd control, and his name was Stan Bach.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so good. I'm glad you brought up the comic because a couple months ago I started discovering all these 80s comics from 80s cartoons. Like I always knew, like I had like Silverhawks #1 and Mask #1, and that was all well and good. But then I'm like, oh, there's a Dino Riders comic, and lo and behold, there's a Cops comic. So I actually picked up issue 1 from that. I haven't read it, mainly because good old 80s writing. The the magic and nostalgia of the 80s drawing and art still holds up, but not so much the storytelling and the the dialogue and stuff like that. But
which is weird because it's copied more than any other decade right now.
It is, yeah. But but not the storytelling. Definitely like the style and looks, but the storytelling has definitely evolved from that.
Yeah, they had some great artists involved with that. I forget who did the interiors, but a lot of the covers were done by Bart Sears, who also designed a lot of the figures for
Nice.
the toy line. But he was great. He did a lot of Valiant books. I like Bart Sears a lot.
Nice. Yeah, I just, like I said, recently figured out about the comics, but growing up watching the cartoon, that was like a staple for me. And you know how every episode, I can't hum it, don't ask me to, but I still remember that opening little music as Bulletproof does the voiceover. And then you
Yeah.
got the case file, and every episode is the name of a case and stuff. And like I can still like hear that so vividly, even though it's been years since I've watched an episode.
Yeah, that
And
opening music when they announced the title is very it's dun dun dun. It's very old, like jazzy kind of thing, which kind of
yeah,
fits like a lot of the characters, even though it's the future, are very kind of old fashioned. Like you got Big Boss, who's very much a James Cagney kind of character, and you got
yeah.
Buttons McBoom Boom, who's like an old '30s gangster, but he's got machine guns in his chest, and
Oh, they
Louis
all
the
are.
Plumber, who's this weird kind of um, plumber, like 1940s, like street thug. Uh, it's, uh, it's interesting how old fashioned some of them are. Like Long Arm is like a beat cop. He's got like the hat. He's got the white stockings over his boots. Very very old fashioned.
And can we talk about Long Arm for a second? The fact that as a kid, I loved that little mechanism he had in his hand that shot out the handcuffs.
Yeah,
Like that was just such a cool little gimmick that they gave him, and the fact that they kind of recreated that with rope and stuff on the action figure. I used to, because he's one of the figures that I had as a kid, and I used to love, just playing with that, as silly as it was, right? You have all these things out there like Mask, where you press a button and the car transforms, but it's like, no, I just want this simple rope and half circle piece of plastic that can go around a bad guy's wrist. Like,
I
like that
mentioned
was one of my
Barricade.
favorites.
Barricade had a pretty great one too. This is one of the few cop figures I have in my collection. Barricade.
Oh,
He
yeah.
had the spring loaded
Yep.
knock people back. I think he called it the mule. And it
That's awesome.
like all the weapons, it had a cap in it, so you had a roll of caps.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that. I had him. Highway. But it was weird that he didn't come with a motorcycle. Like you had to buy that separately.
Highway, yeah, he didn't come with the motorcycle. That definitely was sold by itself without a figure.
Yeah.
But I think Highway came with. Did he come with the like hover bike? It was like it was like almost like a
Yes.
Segway.
Yes.
It was like a little white bike hover bike that he rode around on.
It's like Green Goblin with training wheels.
Yes.
Where they got the skateboard like Back to the Future with the handles like propped up on it. Yeah. Yeah, that's what he had. I loved him. My favorites though, for some reason I loved Mace or Sergeant Mace.
Yeah.
And Bowser and Blitz. Like
Oh, of course.
I don't know why. Something about like a robotic dog and stuff. Like he was my favorite.
Something for me about the Cowboy Sundown, I really liked a lot.
Yeah.
He had like a bolo launcher that would like wrap around people.
Yeah. Yeah. And then as a kid, I always wanted the helicopter with Bullseye. And I don't know when or how, but I finally got it. That was like the best thing in the world. And as cool as it looked, it was kind of this very plain thing. Like the blue and red canopies on the side opened up. You could put the figures in, but there was like no detail, no handlebars, nothing. But I don't know. I think that was such a cool design in the cartoon, and that's why, I mean, that's half the reason why we have these toys, right? Is because we're trying to relive these cartoons in reality, and even back then, we were doing the same thing,
No, absolutely. That was one of the vehicle designs I really liked. That one, the armored vehicle that's sort of opened up. It had like a shell, and that was driven by Hardtop. I think Hardtop actually came with that, but it was I forget what it was called. The armor that might have been the ATAC. I could be mistaken about that, but it was just a really cool armored vehicle design because they drove a lot of cop cars in the cartoon, but this was a very specialized vehicle that I liked a lot.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that one. And then there was another one that was more like just a regular cop car, I think, that they sold.
Yeah,
Um,
and the Crooks had some great vehicles too. They had the flying bike. They had Turbo Two Tone's car, who has one of the best names in cartoons ever, Turbo Two Tone.
Turbo Two Tone.
Yeah, he had like a crazy like handlebar mustache that went into the sideburns. I feel like he had a really receding hairline, or it was just shaved really weird. But he was the Crooks driver, kind of like Hardtop was the Cops driver, and he drove around in like the souped up hot rod kind of
oh
thing,
man.
more like a go kart.
Okay. Yeah, and he had the purple shirt.
Yeah, it was like purple or pink or something like that. And he had
Yeah,
suspenders, and like white pants. He was very stylish, very fashionable.
yeah. Oh man, yeah. I think it's funny how it's fighting crime in a future time. All the cops are like futuristic, but then all the crooks are just like 50s. Like like
Yes,
they're all the mad scientist guy like with
he at least had like a see-through brain dome on his head, which
yes, yeah,
he had a little bit of the science fiction going on. He had a robot sidekick, and he was building robots all the time. But
yeah.
yeah, the crooks are all very much from a different age.
Yeah, yeah, it's so funny. I had Rock Crusher. I had him. I think he was the only bad guy I had as a kid,
The old school
and
prisoner.
just
Yeah.
Crook.
his little like jackhammer.
Crook.
That the jackhammer was the thing that set off the caps.
Yes. Yes.
I remember that. That was so good.
I think in the origin episode they reveal that jackhammer was designed by Dr. Bad Vibes, and he was like he had just joined the crooks team under Big Boss, and he built like the flying bike that Berserko used. He built loaned them Buzz Bomb to help like rob with like drill bullets to rob an armored car, and
Huh.
he built the jackhammer for Rock Crusher.
Interesting. That's interesting that they put that type of backstory in, especially for the 80s like that.
Yeah, they didn't. I don't think they aired it until like episode 8, but it was like the secret origin. It was a two-parter,
Gotcha.
explaining how Bulletproof got injured, how he came to town to stop Big Boss because the cops couldn't handle it, and they recruited the cops from all over the country
Interesting.
with the different specialties.
Interesting. That's cool. I don't think either I didn't catch that episode or I was 5, so I don't remember the episode. one of the two. But yeah, like, what about? I don't know if it's a retcon or they have this plan all the time. But what about the lore that cops are in the GI Joe universe?
That I was not aware of. I know that much later they made a GI Joe of one of the characters from Mask. I think they did like a Matt
Yep.
Tracker as a GI
Yep.
Joe, but
Yeah.
I've never heard that cops were in the GI Joe universe, unless this is what the world of GI Joe is like in the year 2020, which is apparently when the cartoon took place, the far-flung future of 2020.
Yeah, I was gonna say this took place 4 years ago.
Yeah, how much did everything get wrong back then? What the future would be?
I'm pretty sure the gangsters are still there.
Yeah, right.
Still
They're
gangsters.
still around.
Not as many
Two-Tone's
cyborgs,
definitely-
unfortunately.
Two-Tone's definitely a guy down the street.
Yeah. Yeah, right. But no, I think it's I don't know when it came about, but I think one of the bios for one of the cops, he's like a descendant of or grandson of one of the Joes.
Interesting.
Yeah, which I didn't think Hasbro owned the cops license back then, or it was a Hasbro property.
Yeah, it was a Hasbro toy line. They were actually very much like the GI Joe toys. They had the rubber band in them. They were really like 5-inch GI Joes in terms of how they were constructed and the articulation, like the mid bicep and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would make sense if one of the cops or one of the cops was a descendant of GI Joe. There was one military policeman. I can't remember his name, but he wore green and red, and maybe it was him.
Checkpoint.
I don't remember. Checkpoint, yeah.
I have it up. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, all right, I looked it up. Yeah, it's Checkpoint, and that's the one that references Beachhead.
Oh, Beachhead.
Okay.
That's very cool.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say I knew they kind of retconned that at some point. But
That's very cool.
Which
Yeah.
means we could see cops in the comics, yeah,
That'd be
yeah.
pretty cool if they. I
Yeah.
know they're launching a new toy line. It'd be great if they launched a new comic book series as well.
So that's super confusing to me because what was it? At least a year ago, Chicken Fried Toys revealed their Sundown figure. You know, 3 3/4 inch Sundown figure, officially licensed.
Interesting.
And then I think it was this past San Diego, or I think it was at San Diego. If not, it was a couple months prior to that. Fresh Monkey Fiction revealed that they're doing a 6-inch COPS line.
Yeah,
And I think they only show Bulletproof his render, and he looks fantastic. I'm 100% in on that. But Fresh Chicken Fried Toys were releasing renders of more COPS figures, but they renamed all of them. So it's not Long Arm or Checkpoint or Dr. Bad Vibes, but it's all different names. So I'm wondering if sounds like Fresh Monkey had the license because they did the COPS muscle figures. They put out like a pack of muscles.
Yeah.
Which you got sitting right there.
Right here, hanging on my wall.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Very
Yeah,
cool. Little tiny
so
bugs.
So they did that. So I'm wondering if they, gave the license to Chicken Fried Toys. They got through Sundance, and then they decided to do their own thing and pull it back. I don't know. I'm curious, but my heart lies in 6-inch, so I'm behind Fresh Monkey Fiction all the way. Especially because that Bulletproof render looks amazing. Like they did a fantastic job with that sculpt.
Yeah, it looks great.
I hope they go the distance with it.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
there's only like 30 characters listed here.
I mean, there's plenty to do.
Not a ton, but
I think there was something like 30, but they also had a whole series 3 that never got made. I did an article about it back when I was working for ToyFare magazine, and there's a whole page, 3 pages from a catalog of just like there's a magician with a ventriloquist dummy. There's at least 2 clowns. Those are all bad guys.
At least 2.
There's another G-Man, a government agent. The one they didn't make that I was surprised at was what was it? It was Captain Yukon, who was a royal Mountie from Canada, and he first appeared in the episode where there was a drought in Empire City, and they had to bring down an iceberg from Canada to replenish the water supply, and Big Boss tried to steal it, of course. But he appeared in that episode, and he appeared in a later episode, this Mountie character. So I was surprised that he wasn't slated for Series 3 because that would have been a totally great character. And I also hope that this new toy line makes some of the female characters, because the original line, they made none of the female characters. They didn't make Mirage, the undercover agent from COPS. They didn't make Mainframe, the computer expert.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't make Ms. Demeanor, the thug.
Oh, my God, yes. That's a great name, too.
Nightshade. She's got a fantastic name. And Nightshade was the thief, the cat burglar.
Gotcha, yeah.
Crooks line.
That was the 80s, man. The ages they're so sexist. Like, I don't think they understood their demographic because, like, as a fan, I didn't care if it was a girl. Like, I wanted them all. I wanted to, you know what I mean? Like with like going to the 90s with like the Captain Planet figures. Like, they gave you the Linka and I forget the other girl's name. Guy. They gave us both of them, but they were like later in the line and super hard to get.
But that's with Captain Planet, it's kind of hard to take out 2 of the 5 characters. Like, you're missing 33%. If you
that's what I'm saying.
Planet,
is like
right?
that's a huge chunk of the without that Captain Planet's coming out missing an arm and a leg. It's like Voltron, right? But even then, like, we barely got those figures. Where it's like,
I think that really was a thing back then. I mean, in terms of sales reflecting that female characters didn't necessarily sell as well. I mean, I don't know what they were looking at for numbers in terms of G.I. Joe, but like Scarlet and Lady J, got figures pretty early on in the line. I don't know how well they sold compared to other male characters, but they must have had those numbers. They must have
Yeah.
had some sort of research, Hasbro specifically, based on what was going to move and what wasn't going to move. I don't remember seeing a lot of Jinx figures hanging around on the shelf or anything like that, but that's certainly they must have had numbers to back up to be reasons for not pursue female characters. I have to believe that in my heart that they knew that was going to be a problem, and it wasn't just simple prejudice.
Yeah, no. I was joking with that, obviously, but it's like it's heartbreaking as a kid, right? Like I would have loved a misdemeanor figure. Like that would have been so cool, and even in that retro nostalgia style, right? So we got the new stuff coming out, but there's always a place in all our hearts for the old stuff that we grew up with, and I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I like these companies that are filling in those retro nostalgia gaps, where they're giving you figures that fit with the old line of figures, but it's like new.
Mm-hmm.
I forget who, but I think there's like a third party company that's been doing stuff like that, just like filling those gaps. And it's like, there's something about that nostalgia, right? Like that everybody's craving nowadays that's taking over the world. That's why we have, a He-Man Origins line, or like, the Street Sharks
versions of Turtles.
Yeah. And even like the new remastered Turtles, right? Like everything's about capturing that nostalgia.
Yeah, I think it's the Nacelle company that's bringing back RoboForce and Biker Mice from Mars, which I was never into that, but I remember the RoboForce toys; they were very fun. But yeah, they're doing a whole thing with all the different old building their own universe, I guess, with all the old characters.
Yeah, and that's super cool. I was born in '84, so I definitely hit the steam of '80s and '90s, and Nick's just 1 year older than me, so he was slap dab right in the middle of it too. So we're lucky enough where we kind of absorb both decades, so I grew up Transformers, G.I. Joe, but then it's also Power Rangers and Biker Mice from Mars. So that stuff is so cool, and the fact that they're doing Cowboys and Moo Mesa, I love that show as a kid. I had a ton of those figures. It's one of those, like, we're just getting everything now, and I love it.
It's true.
The one figure this year that I'm looking most forward to is the Marshall from Robin Toys, because I've been dying for a Brave Star figure for 40 years almost. like a modern one. I had the one as a kid, but that never looked like the cartoon or anything like that. So I'm very, very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, the old figure definitely could have been better. I remember the articulation wasn't so great, and the likeness was definitely not great. But yeah, another show I never watched. I was born in '77, so when this show came out, I was 11, and that must have been when I was watching it the first time around. By the time the '90s rolled around, I think I'd kind of tuned out for as far as I still watch cartoons like the Batman animated series and stuff like that. But in terms of toys, I wasn't so into the toys anymore.
At that age, you're still prime for watching the shows, because you can still get enveloped in them and understand them and follow them. But at that point, I think we all went through that phase where there's that gap or whatever where it's like, toys, no, I'm too old for that, I'm too cool for it, and then you get over that hump and you're like, no, these things are awesome. Like, I want more. Like, I want all the ones I had as a kid, and I want all the new ones.
Why did I stop? Oh wait, I needed to put gas in my car.
Yeah, right. It's kind of that. That's exactly it. It's that I'm heading in my teenage years. I want to be popular in school. Toys are for kids, and then you kind of figure out that the action figures are kind of cool, but then you have no money for them. So you kind of wait till you get established, and then you're like, okay, now, rent's paid. Okay, let's go on Big Bad Toy Store and see what we got. C.O.P.S, I think, is one of those things where I don't have any. Like none of the ones that from when I was a kid. I never went back and rebought any, but I think I need to. Not a ton, right? Not a ton, but maybe like one or two here or there. I feel because I can remember the way they feel in your hands. And you're right; they pretty much were upscale GI Joe, right? The way they feel. I forgot about the rubber bands though, the O rings or whatever in the waist. I forgot that they were constructed like that, but it's just that one of those things where like the feel of them, and then Nightstick. He was like their like Storm Shadow or
Yes.
Snake Eyes, and I remember he had the two little the mace thing, or whatever you call it, and that had two caps on the ends.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I would always play with that because I'd take in the middle and like pop pop like with the caps and stuff. Like it just we're obsessed with things exploding back in the 80s, huh? RoboCop figures and.
Yeah, I definitely never played with any RoboCop figures. I forgot they had a cap feature too.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was a cool feature, and I'm trying to remember how they incorporated into some of the later figures, like Louis the Plumber and other characters like that, because I forget what Louis the Plumber had that even exploded. I think he had a gun. I have a piece of artwork that I've been dying to show off, which is it's by Richard Marcege, who was one of the artists who worked on the toy packaging. He did when it wasn't Bart Sears, it was Richard, and he did a lot of the artwork there. And you can see Louis had a gun of some kind, so that must have been where the caps were kept. But he also had a backpack, I think.
So you have like a legit love for cops, apparently, like
yes,
which is awesome.
I wish I could say I still had my complete collection, but at one point I had to let it go. I was starting a family, and I was saving up for a house, and I'm like, you know what? These are just sitting in a box. I don't really have a place to display them right now. Moving from small apartment to small apartment. I'm gonna let them go. But when I saw a chance to own Barricade again, I'm like, I'm getting Barricade because if I have one cop, it's got to be Barricade.
Yeah.
But I'm excited about this new line. I'll totally get into that new line for sure.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get a lot quick, right? There's nothing like more than anyone else. It's that balance of keeping people interested without making them wait too long, but then not oversaturating them with too much at once because then they can't afford it. But it's like a new line for cops. I want a wave. Like I hope they give us a wave, right? Not just like here's Bulletproof. Have fun. Yeah. We'll get you another figure in a year. It's like no, give us like 4 figures right off the bat, right? Give us a wave. Like I know that the age of waves is pretty much almost dead, but for a new line, get people interested. You got to get a couple out there. Give us 3 cops and 1 crook, or 2 and 2, or something like that. And again, that's me being uneducated in the toy industry, never working in it, just being a fan and knowing what I want. But to me, like that's what I want and what I hope they do. Because like I said, the fact that they're giving us an actual soft goods, trench coat for Bulletproof, they're doing it right. It seems like, and that's exciting.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's when you have a smaller toy company like the one I work for, we do like two figure waves. We have a Lord of the Rings line where we're putting out 2 figures at a time, Invincible 2 figures at a time.
Yeah.
But you really have to be a pretty big company with pretty deep pockets to say, all right, I'm going to put out 6 or 7 figures at a time, and it's going to be awesome. Like for Hasbro with their Marvel Legends, or Playmates with a wave of Ninja Turtles or something like that. So I mean, it's probably tough for a small company like them to prototype that many figures, to tool that many figures, and just invest that amount of money. And they probably have to, take it a step at a time, which is really what we do with our stuff. So I can see them, doing 2 at a time, which would be really awesome. A cop and a crook, because there's just so many crooks you can do. That'd be really awesome. I would be happy with that, as long as they could keep up a rhythm, keep up a release schedule. I'd be happy with 2 at a time for sure.
Yeah, me too. Like if it's Big Boss and Bulletproof, that'd be fantastic. Kind of give us the pairs like that.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty interesting. Um, but yeah, I definitely get what you're saying as far as that goes. They too much capital, and again for a new line that hasn't been around for what 35 years, something like that.
Yeah.
It is a risk, but I think if the want wasn't there, they wouldn't be doing it at all. So
No, I think there
hopefully,
definitely is a want. Yeah.
hopefully they give us at least two figures a wave and keep it going because I can't lie. I'll be happy if I just get Bulletproof. Like if it's one and done, I'm gonna have that one, and I can say it like I rode them the whole way. So I guess
And
that's one of the benefits.
I think that's the flip side of the coin, like, right? Like, consistently putting out the waves, but that's it. It's a property that was, I'm gonna say, uncommon even for the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, right? It was an uncommon property that was a lot of fun, but you don't hear people talk about cops, right? Like
No.
that's it. Is so like I don't even know who the toy company is because I don't pay that much attention to it. But they're taking a chance by putting it out. So the problem is like the want is there, but then are people actually going to buy that? The problem is like if somebody puts out a shitty toy, they're like, yeah, I'm not buying it. And they're like, see, nobody wanted to buy it. And then you're like, no, but I didn't buy it because it was crap. Like like so it's it's that give and take. It's like, do you want to put the time and effort into something that isn't possibly going to sell? And in my opinion, right, like you're trying it. Why are you half-assing it? So like I don't buy all that many toys. That's Mike. But that's my theory behind it. Like you guys are talking about the waves and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, it doesn't make sense in my non-toy obsessed brain. Well, let me rephrase that. My non-new toy buying brain. Like I'm obsessed with toys, but most of mine are from like 2000 and before. Like I could probably say it's like definitely like a 70-30 split, if not more, right? So it doesn't make sense not to put out multiple characters, but you're explaining it and I'm like, I can understand that. Like, especially since we're not people, the collectors aren't asking for the jank. Like I'm sure they could probably pump out 15 figures at a time if they were like, crap, but at the same right, like if you wanted like unarticulated toys that didn't look so great and
That's what everyone wants nowadays. Just slug figures.
is it
Low parts count. That's no. But I mean, the other thing too is thinking about it is like if they were going to do that, they'd have to get really creative with tooling because there is a lot of original, unique designs with the C.O.P.S line. I don't see a lot of like reuse, and they'd have to definitely get creative to try and fudge things together in that aspect. It's not like they all had cop uniforms with slight variations. They're all like completely freaking different.
One cop uniform and paint it 10 colors.
Yeah, you can't do that. You got like Bowser with like the dog, like the pillow arm and pillow leg, for like the dog attacks and stuff like that. Or whatever, it's like just weird stuff. Like said, Sundown, the cowboy, because it's the future. Why not have a cowboy?
Yeah, they had these body types for the toy line called Bucks, and they would reuse the body type, but then it would be unique tooling because they had to add all the detail and everything to it. But if you look at the figures, there are distinct types. There's the very skinny body type, like for Nightstick and Bad Vibes. There's the sort of middle size for everybody else, and then there's like a heavy set one for super heavy set for Big Boss. But then there are some bulkier ones that are like a little squatter. But when I talked to Bart Sears about it, he was talking about how they had to have these specific base figures just to start each design for each character. that they would build off of.
That's
Um,
interesting.
but the great thing about 6-inch scale, which they're doing for this new line, is that everybody, there are people who just collect 6-inch scale, and it could be any line, but as long as it looks cool with their 6-inch scale collection, they're game for it.
Yeah.
So it's like you're building on this existing line. Lines like Mythic Legions, Marvel Legends, of course. It used to be DC when Mattel was doing it, but now with McFarlane, they've gone up to 7-inch scale. So those actually work better with like Marvel Select and other
Yeah.
DFT lines. But yeah, 7 inch is a fun scale too. You can get a little bit more detail, and depending on the company, you can get a little bit more paint applications, that sort of thing. But 6-inch is definitely king right now.
Yeah. Yeah, which is surprising. I remember because back with like the 25th for GI Joe and the 30th, that's kind of when I was getting back into GI Joes, when they had those coming out with like the Renegades figures, and the Retaliation figures from the movie and stuff like that. I was like, holy crap, the detail, the amount of accessories, and all these little figures. And then was it called Marvel Universe? Was a 3 3/4 inch line. I love that, and that was so good. And then all of a sudden they go to Marvel Legends and they're 6-inch, and I was like, but 3 3/4 is my scale. I'm good, and I just stopped because GI Joe went away, and so did Marvel Universe, because I went to Marvel Legends. But then time moves along, and then everything kind of, like you said, has gone to that scale. And I've fully adapted and adopted it. I got almost every single classified figure for G.I. Joe that's come out. I got a bunch of Marvel Legends figures and all that. And it's like, okay, they're giving us that stuff, but better articulation, better paint outs, better sculpt, better detail. I don't have as much room for many of them, but I'll figure it out. But like you said, like, if they give us just Bulletproof and they end with that, guess what? He'll sit perfectly on my GI Joe classified shelf, and I'll be happy as a clam.
Excellent. Yeah, that's very cool. I'd be happy with just one as well. It'd certainly be better for my wallet, but man, I can't stop thinking about what they would improve. I remember at one point I was like, oh, we should bring these back, and I remember doing designs for figures, like what they would look like now, and they were really just, you can't really improve on the designs. The designs are just so great that you say, oh, I want to update them, but you can't. They were futuristic at the time, and they're just they're still perfect in a lot of ways.
It's just one of those things, one of those properties that I've been wanting plastic of, and if they did that with Back to the Future, I'd be super happy too. Like, give me a little, like, even like, so like this stuff, right? Like I just got this, a couple weeks ago, right? I got a local like vintage secondhand store, and they get stuff like randomly all the time, and they posted like, oh, hey, look what we got. And I was like, you know what? I'm in. And if they give us like Back to the Future figures, like designed like this, bring back gimmicks. I miss gimmicks. I don't. You being in the toy world,
of Batman.
yeah.
Arctic Joe Batman.
I was gonna say I need my Arctic, Arctic figure. Like
Arctic Joe Batman. He basically had an outfit for every criminal.
Yeah, I miss gimmicks. As cool as like these 6-inch, 7-inch figures are, with 32 points of articulation, part of me misses gimmicks. And that's also half the reason why I am thoroughly on the fence about the Mattel Street Shark figures, the redos, because it's the old ones, added articulation, but they still have the action features that they did in the 90s. So it's like, oh, I kind of want that. Like I wish someone would bring back action features. I don't know how they do them. I'm sure that's expensive, probably really expensive, with all the inner workings and the gearing or springs or whatever that has to be involved with that. But
yeah,
it would be cool to see.
No, I imagine all those moving parts and everything would add exponentially to the development costs and the tooling costs and all the factory costs that are involved.
Yeah.
But no, I miss magnets in toys and springs and levers and stuff like that. Like I was looking at my DVD for Cops, and on the back they say they have episodes of Starcom. And I remember Starcom with the magnets; it would activate different stuff, and those were a lot of fun. I didn't have any, but I always played with my friends Starcom figures all the time.
My friends had
And
the Cops figures because when you were like, yeah, it's got the caps. I was like, oh crap, that's where my memory is. I had a friend who either a couple friends who had some figures or at least one friend that just went over to a lot. I don't recall specifically.
yeah, I don't know where I got all my caps when I was a kid because I didn't have any Cops figures when I was younger. So I must have just gotten them from like you could buy them by the roll, like for guns and stuff like that. And I remember just sitting there on a rock, hitting them with a rock,
Yeah.
setting them off, and it was like
yeah.
it was like the most fun thing in the world.
Yeah.
It was. No, but like the caps and the toys is what I very specifically remember. So like obviously
Yeah,
I had
same
this. I remember the cap guns, right? Whether but that was, that was different. It was definitely toy related, and now I'm trying to dig in deep in my brain and memory to figure out whose house it was that I played at. I pulled up that 5-pack that you just showed, and I was like, that.
It's all muscle figures, super cool.
But I'm super into that style. Like that's something like if they gave us like, I think if I had more toys that were like 2-packs like that, like the Battle Beast used to come in, I think I'd be more apt to buy toys. Like, give me $10 for like a 2-pack. They're like 2.5-inch or whatever size they are, right? And I'd probably buy them by the pack. Like every time I go to the store, I'd be like, all right, well, here's another pack.
I mean, that stuff's cool.
It is because it takes a lot more to do something cool with this as opposed to this. You're like, all right, well, I've got 7 inches. I'm like, all right, that's cool. Like, but give me something really cool that maybe doesn't even move, right? Like maybe arms move, like on the Battle Beast, it was like the arms moved and the legs twisted, I think, and like the head turned, and then you had the heat pressure thing. Like, what team were they on?
Like a couple years ago, I love those Eternia minis that Mattel's putting out for He-Man. Just a little chunky, little stylized figures. The 3-punch articulation. Those are super cool. I love I love that stuff.
They're like $5. I think I picked up. I think I actually picked up a few of those. They're, God knows.
That's why I love mini mates. You know what I mean? Like these little things with all like in the stuff that's packed into those. Like, I went.
Yeah, we used to do a lot more 2-packs like these.
Buddy Christ movie.
Buddy Christ. We did a lot of 2-packs.
I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, they're very cool. We made those a long time ago, back when we were making like Clerks and Mallrats and stuff like that. But we don't do the 2-pack so much anymore. We've moved on to like 5-packs because it was to do an assortment of two of like little 2-packs like that affordable, and they were like $10 a 2-pack, like you were saying. To do that, you have to sell like a whole assortment to retailers, and it was hard to get a retailer to invest in like a full assortment. So we started doing these box sets, and that way, people they're easier to order, retailers are easier to carry them. So I can see, but if it was just one 2-pack. That you were selling like individually, I could definitely see that being a cool impulse purchase. Absolutely, like you were saying, I used to love muscle guys, but they sold those in I think blister carded 5-packs, and then they sold the 10-packs in the trash cans, and then they sold the big like 25-packs in the large not carded like window boxes. But yeah, a little pack of muscle guys for whatever it costs, like probably $3 to $5, probably less than $1 each. for sure. That's totally my speed. And those were super interesting for only being like an inch and a half high. They were so detailed. I mean, that's based on a crazy anime manga, but so very cool. I was a big fan.
Oh. I didn't know they had that backstory with the manga and the anime and stuff like that. I thought it was just a toy line.
Yeah, it was from a manga and anime called Kinnikuman about wrestlers, but the wrestlers had like crazy superpowers, and they were like really like there's one guy who's just like a motorcycle. There's one guy who was like a shoe, and he turned into like an alligator because he was an alligator shoe, and I don't know. It was they were very weird. I haven't seen a lot of the anime or read a lot of the manga. I read some of the newer manga when they did like his son coming back. Um, but yeah, they were all based on these little things. They were called King Keshi because they were like little rubber erasers, and Keshi is like an eraser, I guess. And they were Kinnikuman Keshis, so they call them King Keshis. But when they brought them to the U.S., they were less rubbery and more plastic. So you can tell the difference between them if you play with them. But they were still pink. Although in America they did like different colorways. They did purple and red and yellow and stuff like that. But yeah, I was a big fan of those as a kid. Huge fan.
Nice. I don't remember ever having those or ever getting into those as a kid.
Which ones?
The muscles.
Muscle Men.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I had military
I
muscle
also
men.
didn't realize they were based off of
Oh, yeah.
manga.
Yeah, I had military muscle men. Those little figures that were like this big, 5 points of articulation, little military guys. They'd all have a gun that they could either hold in their hand or peg onto their back, and then you had little like tanks and stuff and like Humvees. Like,
Wow, I don't remember those. Articulated? That's fantastic.
yeah, I mean, I can't promise that they were, there might have been like a dollar store thing that never really like was widespread, but I remember having a bunch of those and love playing with those as a kid. That was fun.
No, those do sound fun.
Monster
I know,
High
and
Pocket.
I was big into Battle Beasts too, like you were saying, Nick.
Oh man, I loved me Battle Beast way more than I probably should have. There's a guy on Instagram that like Instagram was like, you might like this, and I was like, oh boy, did you hit that one on the head. It's this dude who's going around and like collecting all of them, but also buying all of them carded in all of the variations.
Oh gosh.
So every time he picks something up, he posts it. So sometimes you won't hear from him for like a month or two. But as he picks it up and posts it, it's just kind of like, oh, I can't believe you're like, who buys these? Like, nobody in 2024, right? But yeah, no, it's. I mean, don't say nobody. Like I still have mine. They're out that way with all my other sweet, awesome toys that I never got rid of. But I had like this vehicle. It was like a deer head, and it was one of those pullback ones, and then it shot forward, and the mouth go. It's so much fun chasing my cat with that. Man, it was a jerk.
I forgot they had vehicles. That's totally a memory rush for me that they had the deer-headed vehicles and stuff like that.
Right? Yeah. No, I had me some Battle Beasts.
Yeah, I don't remember vehicles at all. Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it was like a present from my grandparents because my grandma loved me and was like, "Here's all the things." Sure, we'll take it as Zares and Ames, and we'll buy you a toy every time we go. My mom was like, "Why did you buy him a toy?" And they were like, "Well, he asked," and I was like, "Am I not supposed to?"
Best grandparents ever.
Yeah,
they were phenomenal, and over the course of my life, they like lived with us sometimes, and sometimes they didn't, and every once in a while, they were just like I'd go hang out with them for like an entire weekend, and we'd like take a trip down to whatever store, and sometimes I'd come home with like 3 or 4 more toys than I went there with. Yeah, no, my grandma was pretty awesome. My mom's mom, she was pretty fantastic. Spoiled, like I have a lot of weird things that like I grew up with, and most of it came from her. And whatnot. Like we talked about it on the Indiana Jones episode. I was like 8 or 9 when I got the box set for that. And they were like, "Here's a box set for Indiana Jones," and I was like, "What's this?" And they were like, "You'll be fine." Like that's what happened in like the 80s and early 90s. They were like, "Sure, we're gonna definitely give this less than double-digit kid full and utter access to a dude ripping another dude's heart out."
Yeah.
Totally fine.
Was
Yeah.
part of that whole. I mean, obviously you had like the RoboCop cartoon and the Rambo cartoon and stuff like that, where they were just totally taking these and alien cartoon, taking these adult properties and trying to aim at kids. But they really they still do that today. I mean, look at all the toys they make for all like the Marvel movies that are PG-13, but they make all these toys that are distinctly for younger kids. It's a very interesting phenomenon that it has been going on forever.
Yeah. Like I said, I had RoboCop figures.
Yeah.
I thought they were super cool. I think there was a RoboCop cartoon, but these figures were definitely from the movie, right? They were movie figures, and I remember seeing RoboCop, like the character, never realizing as a kid that it was a very adult R-rated movie. Just like you kind of understand like Aliens and Predator. Like, okay, this is a horror movie, right? Just by the nature of the alien, the look of it, and stuff like that. So you kind of understood as a kid. But then, like, I had Rambo figures. I had freaking Rambo action figures. Like, what the hell? Like,
oh yeah, I had I had a Rambo action figure and I had a toy Rambo gun, and I still don't think to this day I've actually seen the movie Rambo.
Oh man.
Well, I mean, like as I got older, I fell into like weird like comedies and sci-fi and like weird comedies and other movies that most people are like, that's a real movie, and I'm like
Rambo's worth watching.
I mean,
Rambo First Blood, Rambo First Blood Part 2, Rambo First Blood Part 3. No, I'm just kidding. I don't remember how they named it. I just remember the first one is First Blood,
and then the second one is definitely first like it's definitely
Second Blood,
First Blood 2 or something like that. No, it's
Isn't, the newest one is called Last Blood. I know that,
right?
Yeah,
because
where's a crotchety old man in the woods.
Well, yeah, but now he's in Guardians and he's space crotchety old man.
Space Rambo.
Space Rambo.
I'm surprised he never went to space. That just seems like something the natural progression for Rambo.
Went to space,
Why did they send him to go kill the Predators?
Rambo versus Predator. That would have been a fantastic.
Instead of AVP, it's RVP.
RVP. In the comics, they did Alien versus Predator versus RoboCop versus Terminator. That was an actual comic book series.
No way, seriously?
Yeah, for sure. They made they made an action figure of RoboCop with like, I have it somewhere, with like Terminator parts. Because in the comic book series, RoboCop versus Terminator, or it might have had Alien Predator in it. That particular one, but definitely RoboCop versus Terminator. He like gets customized with like different Terminator parts.
There's an entire video game for that.
Yeah.
That I completely forgot existed because I'm pretty sure I've played it before. But at the same time, like I was just scrolling and trying to find something, and it was like all of a sudden my feed has been like people playing weird video games for the past couple weeks, and somebody was like, "Yeah, here's like level 4 of Terminator, RoboCop versus Terminator." I was like, This is a memory unlocked. I forgot this was a new regular Nintendo game that existed because I mean, it's the same game that like every other game had. It was like basically the same type of video game. We just reskinned. It was just reskinned, so it was like every game was easily the same thing. They didn't even. They probably didn't even change any of the coding at all. They were just like, all right, we're gonna call this one RoboCop versus Terminator, and then we're gonna call this one,
Contra
versus Huh?
That's the other thing too. I had Terminator action figures. Like, what the fuck?
I think we all had action figures that we look back on now and we're like, maybe that was a bad idea.
No.
Maybe it was. I mean, maybe it was the best idea.
I mean, let's be honest. Like,
I
you
don't
look
know.
at Terminator is very marketable to kids. Like, especially back in the 80s, like that was very marketable to kids. Movie, not so much, but the toys, hell yeah. And you get the
Well, all toys.
T1000 and stuff, and
That's the thing. All the toys we had back as kids were very marketable towards us because we were very much impressionable as kids.
yeah. But I
Not-
mean, I'm talking about the property of Terminator, right? The
Oh
Terminator
yeah.
itself is very marketable to kids, even though it's rated R.
Here's the
Same with
thing.
Aliens and Predator.
That's it. It's like if the toy looked cool, I'm pretty sure. I bet if we took a poll of 1,000 people who are in our age bracket, right? Like I'd say mid 70s to even early 90s, people born in that aspect, and like or late 80s, I'll say. Like anybody born in that window, how often they purchased toys that were entirely based off of them looking cool, right?
Yeah.
Like we've talked to other people, like we talked about the Spawn action figures, right? And like how awesome they were in a previous episode, and the hunting, and we also touch upon like how there was that one girl character who was like one per like 40 boxes, so there was like net, like it was like we're gonna make it, but we're gonna make it so hard to find, and be like, see, it didn't sell. It's like, yeah, okay, well you made one for every other like 30 other characters, right? So like sure. Anyway, but that's it, is like the toys looked really cool. Like toys just looked really cool, and I don't know if it's like the nostalgia. Like we look back on it now, or like the toys just looked really cooler, or like way cooler. And I'm pretty sure it was just because like we were just young impressionable kids that were like, that looks amazing. Like I
They
have
still
no
do.
idea why I wanted the Rambo toy.
If I didn't,
I wanted the toy gun as well, and I
yeah.
got both of them. No idea why.
Listen,
Couldn't tell you.
if I didn't have a mortgage or a car payment, there'd be so many more toys that I'd be buying right now just because they look cool. Like I have no interest in the story. I have no idea what's going on, but this thing looks cool. I kind of want it. Like I'd have so many more toys than I do now. Like
No, the cops definitely was in that looking really cool category. I can see people wanting to get those toys even if they hadn't seen the cartoon at all.
yeah,
Like
for
the
sure.
crash test dummies, they looked awesome.
Crash Test Dummies, yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean,
I
GI
had a
Joe
bunch
is the ultimate of like toy lines that looked really awesome. My mom didn't want me to have GI Joes at first because they were all soldiers. They all had guns. There was a sniper, for gosh sakes. Um, but
assassin.
but I guess my dad wore her down or ignored her or something like that. But
Because dads did that a lot back then. Okay, whatever. All right, so I'm definitely gonna give you this BB gun.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid. Yeah, but then we got cops figures, and we're just sitting there with little mini, explosives,
Explosives, yeah.
just sitting there.
Like they literally gave us caps. They were like, "Here, go play with this in your room," and we're like,
I still
okay.
remember my favorite was the little missile that Highway came with. It was just a little plastic piece with a metal like reservoir tip, and you put the cap in there, and I would just grab it and drop it on the carpet, and just poof, all the time, and just I can remember the smell of the caps and everything, even like the smell of the red paper that the caps were on. Like I can remember that smell.
Burnt carpet. Love it.
It never burned the carpet, but I definitely, I don't know, I definitely remember all the smells and the sound and everything, and I kind of like, again, back to the gimmick thing. I kind of miss those little gimmicks and stuff like that. And now we have more safety regulations and all that stuff. But that's why we can't have Rocket Fire and Boba Fett.
yeah.
Because we were like, oh, these were bad ideas. Maybe our kids shouldn't do that. And then, so, obviously.
Yeah, now instead of spring fire missiles, we have friction fired missiles.
I'm wondering what I guess that's why the missiles on old Toy Biz X-Men figures were all so long. I guess they were trying to make them big enough that they wouldn't choke on them or something like that. I don't know. They were, or it has even the GI Joes. They had some big missiles when they got the missile launchers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I had these like 4-inch bright yellow missiles for my
Yeah.
Mike, what's the
General.
vehicle? Yeah, I always forget. It's a good thing Mike's here. But yeah, I had these massive missiles, and my mom was the first time I fired them. My mom was always every time I fired them, my mom was like, "What are these?" And I was like, "Pew."
Don't worry about it, Ma.
Yeah, don't.
But you think about it though, like even like those things, and like you said, the GI Joe ones, they made them longer or whatever. I can understand why the rocket firing Boba Fett never made it, because his missiles probably would have been like that big. That definitely would have been like, hey, check this out. Right in someone's mouth.
Yeah. No, they were like the size of a Tylenol. They were definitely choking hazards for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I could definitely see that one. Yeah. The other way would have been they just made a super long missile that just hangs off of his back that fires off. No way, kid's gonna choke on this. Joke's on you. Kids are dumb. We can choke on anything.
Yeah.
Challenge accepted.
You want to see me drown in a bowl of cereal? Watch me.
I'm not gonna lie, Cops is the more I think about Cops and the characters, I'm like, man, Dick Tracy had a lot of characters like that. And then I remembered that I had Dick Tracy characters too, like action figures too.
Yeah, you had a little Warren Beatty.
No, I had some of the other characters, like some of the cool side
Prune
characters,
Face,
like, Flat Top. Yeah, I think Prune Face I had. Probably still have.
I'd keep going, but I'm definitely going to confuse Dick Tracy villains with Fat Albert's crew. Like, oh, there's Mushmouth. Right. And
I haven't seen Dick Tracy in forever. I got to see Dick Tracy again.
Dick Tracy's coming back with comics too. I think I wouldn't be surprised if some of the big, massive resurgence in a lot of these character toy lines and everything like that, and the success of them are based off of the fact that somebody's also simultaneously, instead of giving us cartoons, they're giving us comics now. Like Dick Tracy comic, just like I said, just launched again. Like, you got the Transformers one with Voids and all of the G.I. Joe ones being in the same universe, essentially. Like we mentioned earlier in the episode, we got all the Nacelle stuff coming out too, and it's like,
yeah, they got their unified comic, and
right, and that's
they're gonna have.
Like,
I was gonna say they're gonna have like their own individual like Biker Mice, comics and stuff like that too for all their stuff. So,
right, and they started releasing those already, but they'll loop it all together and they'll give us the crossovers. Like, I mean, I already have G.I. Joe versus Transformers, like 14 different short comic mini-series with them. It's like G.I. Joe versus Transformers, G.I. Joe versus Transformers 2, Transformers versus G.I. Joe. And I was like, is this a new mini? Yeah, it's a totally different mini-series. Let's just flip-flop the name and call it something and do a different mini-series. So I've got like 4 or 5 of them. Like you mentioned that comic, and I'm like, why do I have like a strange recollection of like buying those recently at some sort of 50-cent sale or dollar sale? Because anytime I find weird stuff like that, I end up buying it. I'm like, I'm not here for one of the 45 different flashes or anything. I'm here to find that weird, crappy comic that is, Terminator versus what was the other? I picked up a one recently. It was like Terminator versus Deathstroke or something like that, and I was like, "What? Yes." One, I got 4 out of the 5. Done. I'll buy you. It'll take me forever to read you, but I'll buy it. So if somebody put out a Cops and Crooks comic right now, I'd probably buy the crap out of that. Like I'm flip flopping back and forth and buying that 5-pack right this moment. So
there's colored, and then there's the muscle colors one too. So you got two different packs to buy.
Oh, crap! Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that.
Yeah, no.
Um,
I
so
just I like the old comics. Like I said, like I was so thrilled when I found out that there was a Cops comic, like comic book series.
it
Because
really
like
was.
I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I went down a rabbit hole because I'm like, okay, well, Silverhawks mask. I know there's a Transformers. There's gonna be a Thundercats. Like, what else is there? I'm just gonna do like 80s, maybe early 90s cartoons that had comic books. And like, I was texting Nick. I'm like, I went down a rabbit hole. I got like 50 comic books I got to go buy now because all I care about is issue number 1. You know, I don't have to go deep into the line. But I'm like, all right, there's a Dino Riders, there's a Cops and Crooks. Like, I'm like, this is fantastic.
You have
Instead of
Spiral Zone.
Spiral Zone, yeah. Oh,
Spiral
jeez.
Zone. James
Er,
Bond Jr.
that's on my list. I need that one.
The one thing I did, going back to the Back to the Future ones, I've actually kind of liked the style of the Back to the Future cartoon figures that did come out.
Yeah.
I like it. I like that cartoony style.
Oh, the oh, what are they? What are they called? It's not like the Clerks in action figures, but it's kind of the same thing where like they don't move,
Oh,
right?
so many of those.
Toonie Terrors is the Toonie Terrors of the new line.
Yeah, kind of like that. I don't think they're under the Toonie Terrors banner, but it's pretty much the same thing.
I don't have any of the Back to the Future figures, but I have the Hot Wheels car.
Oh, nice. Wait,
have
is that actually Hot Wheels, or is that looks like?
No, I'm sorry, the Happy Meal car. It's
Okay,
got the
yeah.
rev up and it's got sparks up here in the back.
Oh my
You
god,
got
that's so good.
Toonie
That's so
Classics.
Okay, that's what it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They got like Biff and Marty and Doc.
Yeah. Yeah, it's from like the cartoon series.
Yeah.
I do have the Lego DeLorean, like the first one that came out. The $60 ideas one. But I also I haven't even put it together. I have like the big $200 one as well. I enjoy me some Back to the Future. Like, I love the cartoon series way more than any person probably should.
My only thing was the cartoon series picked up after the third movie, right?
Yeah, it was very much
so
it included his kids and Clara and stuff like that.
I was never a Wild West fan as a kid or even as an adult, so like I do not like the third Back to the Future movie, even though it's a good movie. I just don't like the fact that it's like the Wild West, and like I was never into that John Wayne, gunslinger stuff. Yeah.
The third one was my least favorite out of the three. Still, it is still a great movie, but something about that cartoon, I was just like obsessed with it. And
I definitely watched it as a kid. That there was the Dumb and Dumber cartoon, the Ace Ventura cartoon.
What?
Cartoons?
Yeah,
yeah. And they had toys. Like they literally gave every successful thing in the 90s probably had a cartoon at some point.
Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
Cartoon and toys. Yep.
Yeah.
I remember they did a Men in Black cartoon, and they almost made action figures for it. They had them on display at one of the toy fairs I went to, and they looked awesome. They were really fantastic. They were really faithful to the animated style. And then I don't think any of them ever came out. They did a couple of movie-based figures that weren't very good, but the cartoon ones looked fantastic. And then I think they never released them, unfortunately.
That sucks. I used to like that cartoon. That was a pretty good one.
Yeah. They gave us everything in the 80s and 90s. Whether we wanted it or not, they gave it to us. Futuristic cops. Futuristic cops fighting old-timey crooks. You got...
Now, was there... So the crooks, most of them are pretty old-timey, like 50s gangsters and all that stuff, or 40s... was there ever anything in the comics or cartoon that you remember that delve with like time travel or anything like that? Are these like all these crooks like in 2020 and from 2020, or were they like from past times that got brought to the future?
I don't remember anything about time travel in the comics for sure. They introduced some characters later who were a little bit more like cybernetic. I mean, I keep going back to Louis the Plumber. I'm pretty sure he had a cybernetic arm that you could attach stuff to.
Yeah,
And you had Buttons Boom Boom with the cybernetics.
that
But
was
yeah,
the flip out
Bullet.
guns.
There's one guy named Bullet who was like he had a helmet and he had like a Gatling gun and he was covered with weapons. He had like pistols and like every pouch on his body. Um, and there's a guy named the Hyena who was like he was like masked. He looked like a supervillain really, and
Yeah,
he was another rival crime boss who eventually went to work for Big Boss, I guess, based on
huh.
some of the episodes. So there were some who were I don't know. I don't know what it is about like they're looking for stereotypical criminal types, and all the stereotypical criminal types are like from older times. I guess just when you think about like criminals, what kind of criminals do you think about?
Yeah,
I mean,
that
modern
and then
criminals are kind of scary, you know. I mean, maybe that's what they were. They were like, oh, we don't want to have like a guy in a ski mask driving around in like a windowless van, that sort of thing, you know. Um, it's just they wanted more innocent criminals that maybe weren't so threatening. Maybe that's
yeah,
what they were going
okay.
for. I don't know. One
Uh,
thing that we haven't talked about that I thought was very interesting was that Bulletproof was one of the few main characters in a cartoon who was African American. I mean, there weren't really any character who was African American in a cartoon back then was like a secondary character.
Yeah,
Aside from maybe Ghostbusters, where he was one of the main four, Winston. Um, but
even
like
then
G.I.
he was
Joe, yeah.
he was like separated, right? Winston was it was definitely like Peter Ray Egon and then Winston. Even in the
'cause he
movies,
was,
like they kind of sidelined him most of the time.
yeah,
True, he was definitely the last addition in the first movie, and he was kind of the odd man out in the second movie because he was the guy who didn't, who was kind of more. Well, he was the guy who didn't really believe in the first movie, and then in the
He's
second
in it
movie,
for a
he was kind of
paycheck.
he's kind of the guy who did believe. He was like, this is the end times, like from the Bible. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, he had a couple of episodes where it was all about Winston. But they all had that. But he definitely had some star turns in the cartoon.
yeah,
But it's just so interesting that Bulletproof was like the main character, and he was African American. It just wasn't very common back
it wasn't
then. In
common.
fact, I was
yeah.
remember reading through some of the episode descriptions to remind myself, and the president at the time was African American and a woman. They meet the president of the United States, or well, I guess it's definitely the United States because at one point one of the characters is from Philadelphia. I'm pretty sure. Um,
Huh.
but the president is African American woman. I thought that was very interesting because it's like they could have very easily gone the more safe route, and they went and they did something that was very progressive for the time.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, Bulletproof was a pretty compelling character too.
Yeah, yeah, he had a rich backstory. Um, and whereas maybe a character like Roadblock didn't really have that rich a backstory. He was a chef from New Orleans or something like that.
Yeah,
Um, but no, he was definitely one of the more developed characters in the show, and I just it was just something that I thought about when I was revisiting the show in preparation for this, just like thinking about it. I'm like this is very unusual for the time, for that
yeah,
era.
yeah. Were there any others in the show, or was it just him? As far as like
Um,
actual characters, but aside from like the president.
Taser was one of the later characters who was introduced, I think, in series 2 of the figures and later episodes of the show. I think there were like 65 episodes. He came a little
That's
later,
a
and
pretty good run.
he wore like a baby blue police outfit, and he had a taser gun, like a big shoulder-mounted rig that would like shock people. I forget how the caps worked, and I'm sure it was just a simple trigger effect. But yeah, he was definitely one of the more interesting designs. He was of an era I think he was around the same time as Nightstick.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember any of the waves. Like I said, I got recollections of the figures, not the waves. Back then it was just cool toys, and Nick and I have talked about it. There wasn't the internet or even commercials half the time telling you these toys are coming out, you kind of just are in the store and you see them and you discover them on the spot.
Yeah.
You know.
So everybody talks about like all these different scale figures. Can we just get like a consistency, like drop it down to like 2 different sizes, and then you gotta either do this size or this size,
No.
and then everything is like
No.
people are literally running out of space at this point. Like you're like, all right, well, I could get this toy, but then it's like, all right, well, I got to get rid of like these other 15 toys to make space for that one, and it's like, feel like it's the opposite of like what people like. I feel like people would spend more money if they were like, all right, well, everything's 3-inch or 4-inch or whatever, and like all the vehicles and everything are just built for 4-inch figures, and call it a day.
Yeah.
That way you can plan on it. It's consistent. It's everybody's like, yep, we're all here, as opposed to like,
Yeah,
all
but
right.
Somewhere along the way, someone decided 6-inch is the new standard, and for the most part, that's everyone's following suit with that, except for you got like NECA or McFarlane doing 7-inch. Some smaller companies like Chicken Fried Toys doing 3 3/4 still. But somewhere along the way, everyone got together and said, we're doing, 6 inches is king now.
You can still get some good inexpensive 3 3/4. Actually, I don't know how inexpensive some of them are. Like Hiya Toys, there's some cool stuff.
Oh my God, yeah.
The RoboCop with the
really
kick
good.
me on the back. They're really nice, detailed 3 3/4 inch figures. Like I'm not a fan of the reactions, like you were talking about. I mean, you're really paying for the packaging at that scale.
Yeah.
And that level of detail, but there are still good 3 3/4 inch figures out there. So I'm happy to see that scale still exists in some form because it was such a big part of my childhood.
Yeah. I mean, same here. Even then, back when we were kids, like there was no scale, like there was no consistent scale, right? Things were all over the place.
Oh no!
And
I think that's where this stems from, is the fact that my Lion-O figure was like this tall, and then like
I know it was like 7 for sure. He-Man was like 4.5.
Andre the Giant was smaller for some reason, and then like my Turtles were smaller, and then G.I. Joes were smaller than that.
Then you go down to Mask and Starcom and
yeah. Like my Battle Beasts were obviously smaller than that, but like like I said earlier, like if everything was like Battle Beast size, I'd probably buy a lot more toys. That would be like, that was my thing.
I would definitely have a lot more vehicles. I'll tell you that. Like,
yeah. That's
probably a deer head,
right?
And it's sad too. Like the day of playsets is like gone.
We talked about the mini mates. I'm like, I don't know. That's probably why I was like, that big. I'm on board with that.
We need mini-mate. We need more mini-mates. We need mini-mate vehicles. We need mini-mate playsets. I'll buy all that shit. I have the Thundercat mini-mates from 2010, something like that.
Yeah.
And then I have the movie Ghostbusters. I got all of those. And then I got the real Ghostbuster figures. I got all of those, including Lewis with his proton pack, Janine with her proton pack. I got all those. Give me an Ecto-1. Give me a Firehouse. Right? You guys gave us a DeLorean. Right?
Yes.
We got a DeLorean.
Halo Warthog. We did like a bunch of jets and different things. We did Knight Rider. We did the kit.
Yeah.
And Munsters. We did the Munster vehicle. But
I missed that one. Okay.
No, it's definitely tough. Like without a big order from a big retailer like Toys R Us, to do stuff like that. Just because of the massive tooling, you have to make that tooling spread out over a certain number of pieces. But no, I'd love to do more vehicles. Ghostbusters Ecto-1 was definitely one we talked about at the time that we just couldn't make happen, unfortunately. But that would have been awesome. We just made a wrestling ring for our AEW mini mates, so we're kind of still in the playset arena, sort of. But no, it would definitely be cool to do more stuff like that. I mean, they're 2 inches. We should be doing more.
Just go back. Give me the Ghostbusters again. Make the proton packs removable, and then give me an Ecto 1 and let me store the proton packs in the back of it and all 4 Ghostbusters inside. Okay, and then give me a fire station that I can park that Ecto 1 in. I will buy the shit out of all that. Like, that's all I ever wanted as a kid.
I'd like to say thank you for further perpetuating my stance. Like, that's it. I think that's why.
But that's the thing that makes them so good is that, like, they're so small, they're versatile, and you can easily have 50 of them, and it takes up almost no room. Like
So, and I think so. I moved into Lego World, right? Like, that's why I kind of that's why I steered away from action figures at all, is because between video games, movies, and Legos, my money was elsewhere, right? Like, I didn't have money to buy any of the action figures, and most of the action figures in the past 25 years, because it was Legos, because their figures are this big and everything can be made to scale, and I can play with them like I want to. And that's that. I found a Turtles channel on Amazon Prime Live TV, and they were playing, like, I think I just turned it on. I was like, what? It was like season 3 of the old 87 cartoon. Yeah, so turns out my 11-year-old became obsessed with it. He's like, why is everything so ridiculous? I was like, that's what it was. Get over it. And I told him, I was like, yeah, somewhere out in the garage is the Technodrome. He's like, what? You have the Technodrome? And I was like, yeah. I also have the sewer layer and a blimp. I got this, that. And he's like, where in the garage? I was like, I don't know. Like, it's somewhere.
I like how the Turtles just, like, committed Grand Theft Auto a bunch of times and no one, like, questioned it. Like, they stole a news van, turned it into the party wagon. They stole a blimp. Like,
somewhere in some parallel reality, Ninja Turtles and Cops are made by the same company, and they're both highly successful toy lines to this day. And they do a crossover where the Ninja Turtles take over one of the Cops' vehicles, paint it green, and call it the Turtle Attack Vehicle, and they drive it around. And that's a toy. That's a toy that is available in Toys R Us, which is also still active in this timeline.
Outside of Canada.
That'd be fantastic.
I think that's probably the universe I want to live in. I mean, That's what I did back in the day. Was I took that's how I know all the scale figures are really wonky. It was like, I had the old WWF wrestling ring, and I've talked about it a number of times, and all my action figures definitely battled each other. Like, Hulk Hogan was teamed up with Leonardo, and he definitely fought Jake the Snake Roberts, who was teamed up with Lion-O for some weird reason. It was just because me and my friends, we would all take a corner, and it would be like tag team. It'd be like, all right, like, we have like a weird like draft. It'd be like, all right, who do you want to pick? And it would be like all the action figures out, and people would just pick whoever they wanted, and we'd have like 2 or 3 person tag teams. And was I the only one that did that?
It wasn't tag team, but it was definitely just like teams fighting. It wasn't like wrestling, but
like the ropes they were elastic.
Yeah, I never had a wrestling ring as a kid. I never had any wrestling figures either.
Pull them back and be like launch them into each other. It was a blast.
Yeah,
did all of that while watching Nickelodeon cartoons.
Which C.O.P.S was not a part of.
No, it was definitely not. C.O.P.S was not a part of that. CyberCOPS wasn't even.
Yeah, CyberCOPS. Fighting crime in an even more future time.
2021.
2021 coming at you.
Still think that was one of the funnier things when I looked it up. I was like, I pulled it up and I was like, 2020. Wow.
The past got so much wrong. Like, so many times. Like, at least Aliens is like, oh yeah, all right, we're gonna do like 2090. All right, they're moonshot, okay? Like,
yeah, hopefully it's out there.
Back to the Future is like 2015. Isn't
Flying
the
cars.
Jetsons are also like, isn't that 2006 or something like that?
Right? I don't know.
They got it so wrong. My God.
Yeah,
I'm glad
it
cops
is.
can follow that trend though. Like that just means that they were a product of their time.
Nobody got like that's the thing is like we were on such a good trend, and then something happened, and we were like, all right, so what if we don't make any real? What if we make
Advancements.
advances? Well, I think it was we made advances. We're not where we were 20 years ago, but we definitely don't have flying cars. Nobody can make a decision on what we're going to use for cars. Like, it feels like there was a lot more unanimous decisions in movies from back in like the day where everybody was like, no, yeah, all right, everybody's going to put all their effort towards this. Cool. Everybody's like, all right, we're creating flying cars. We're creating 3D movie posters that come out and bite you, right? Like we're creating, cybernetic enhanced cops. I feel like that would be a bad idea right now. I think
We need a live action cops movie. That'd be badass.
I feel like maybe right now is not the time for that though.
Maybe not, but
Maybe it is. I don't know. I'm probably the wrong person to ask on this. Like
For a year or
But-
two there, making the cops the hero of a show or a cartoon was definitely questionable. I think we're getting back to a time when we could probably make it happen.
that
But yeah, no, a movie about futuristic cops. I'm sure there are several low budget versions of that out there, but we need a big budget one for sure.
yeah.
we did some pretty fantastic ones. Demolition Man,
Yes,
Judge Dredd.
yes.
Minority
Not
Report.
Yeah. Wasn't what was it? Total Recall was somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
There were futuristic cabs anyway, robot cabs.
Yeah.
RoboCop is
Fifth
probably
Element?
RoboCop is probably the closest we've gotten to a live action cops. I mean, when you think about it, for sure.
It could work. It could definitely work with the right team and the right budget. Isn't that how everything is though? Like with the right team and the right budget, anything can work.
No, that's not true. There's definitely a number of movies out there that had the right team and the right budget, and all of a sudden, what happened?
And there's
Studios.
big toy properties that they can't seem to get off the ground as movies, like He-Man. They've been talking about making a He-Man movie
Oh my
forever.
god! Yeah.
Thundercats. I mean, if they can't make a new He-Man movie happen when they've done it before, and it's still a very popular concept, and everybody knows what He-Man is, then I think Cops is probably a long shot.
Especially on the heels of all the Netflix cartoons that people actually really liked. It's not like we're dealing with Thundercats, where the last thing we got Thundercats was that Thundercats cartoon.
No.
Moving on past that.
Yeah,
but
we're definitely due for a He-Man movie, but a legit He-Man movie that has the lore and the story, not just Dolph Lundgren running around in loincloth, never mentioning Prince Adam or King Randy
modern
or
day
anything
New
like
York, whatever city they're in.
that. Yeah, or the Krispy Kreme or whatever.
I think
the hell they show up in.
Isn't that actually? Aren't they closer to making that?
That's what they keep saying. They keep saying there's a script and it's been rewritten, and then someone is attached to play He-Man, and then they're not. But I think I just read the other day that they Tila,
yeah, Camila Mendes.
Yeah, they just signed it to Tila supposedly.
Riverdale.
So
that's cool.
We'll see. I mean, I'll watch it, and as long as they just need to be faithful to the cartoon. I want a scrawny Prince Adam. I want a jacked up He-Man. I want a Sword of Power that actually does powerful things. I want a Skeletor. Skeletor is probably the only thing that they got right in the '89 movie. That was probably the only thing. Frank Langella is Skeletor, and he looked pretty good to me. But yeah, I want to see a Thundercats movie for sure. That'd be amazing. I don't think we're ever gonna get that, not anytime soon. Like it's too far in the distant past. Is it Dynamite has the comic out right now?
Yeah, I
But
think
other
they're
than
very
that,
good. Yeah.
but other than that, there's not much media wise going on with that, and I don't think it has attraction to really, gravitate its own movie.
That's too bad. Another show with really great designs. It's fantastic design.
Yeah. Oh, I would kill. I would kill for that. Silverhawks. Give me a Silverhawks movie. Just give me a universe, right? A shared universe where He-Man, Thundercats, and Silverhawks exist all together. Just like in the different parts of the galaxy or whatever. And
Let's call it. Just give it multiverse, whatever, man. Who cares at this point? You're gonna piss off like 10% of the population. The rest of us are gonna be like, "Yep, totally cool. I'm putting that behind me. I don't care that these characters are in this universe over here. Give me them over here as well. We'll call it Retroverse, and it'll literally just be characters based off of really crappy in all perspective nowadays cartoons from like the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and that's what we'll do. Similar like what Captain N did. He like compiled all the
Yes.
games, and as we're talking about it now, I'm like, who should play Bulletproof? Terry Crews.
Oh
I'd
my
watch
god, that'd be
the crap
amazing.
out of that. Terry Crews as the lead actor in a cop show,
Listen, I'll watch Terry Crews in
a
anything.
futuristic cop show. Not to be confused with Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where it was Terry Crews as a cop.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good old Team Money.
Right. But I think like we're probably closer to it than we think, because that's what everything's coming out as, right? Like nowadays it's like, all right, so we're making this a movie and we're gonna make this a property, and everybody's like, just don't fuck it up, man, and I'll pay you to see it. And then they're like, all right, so we half-assed it because somebody got involved that probably shouldn't be involved, and here's what you got. And we're like, you had one job, man. Everybody would fling money at you if you didn't do that.
We gave you the formula. We gave you the story. All you had to do was put it on film. Like,
yeah. Like you even got partial scripts, man. Like don't even vary from it. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
all right, so we'll just all have to will this into existence.
That's why I keep talking about
C.O.P.S
it,
and
man.
Crooks movie comes out, and especially once Fresh Monkeys figures come out, and it's going to be huge traction. And then we'll get the figures and the movie, and then we'll all circle back and do a part 2 to this, where we talk about how awesome and perfect the movie was and how it made $1 billion opening weekend. And
all right,
Zach, thank you for having this discussion with us.
Oh, thank you for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
You unlocked so many memories of the figures and all the times that I watched that cartoon as a kid. And I am definitely not going to go on eBay after this and, find a figure that's not going to break the bank. But before I go do that, I wanted to tell everybody where they can find you, how they can get a hold of you, and anything you have going on.
Sure. I'm at Zachoat on Instagram, Zachoat. You can see my toy photography there. I do behind the scenes on YouTube, ToyFare Zach. And I go to shows for Diamond Select Toys, so look for me at the New York Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con, and I'm around.